Good evening, I'm Brian Reagan. This is
Tyler Kelly.
And we welcome you to our Twilight Talks on the Psalms. Tonight we're in Psalm 81, verses 11 through 16, Tyler.
My people would not heed my voice, and Israel would have none of me. So I gave them over to their own stubborn heart, to walk in their own counsels. Oh, that my people would listen to me, that Israel would walk in my ways. I would soon subdue their enemies, and turn my hand against their adversaries. The haters of the Lord would pretend submission to him, but their fate would endure forever. He would have fed them also with the finest of wheat, and with honey from the rock I would have satisfied you.
All right. So, this appeal it's looking back to the wilderness, because the same problem they had in the wilderness is the same time that they're having during the time of the kings. And you've got the issue that the Lord makes the point of, and I go back to verse 10, I am the Lord your God who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Open your mouth wide and I will fill it. This is very reminiscent of Matthew chapter 5, where the Lord says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. But you have to be willing to receive it. And the simple fact is, if Tyler has, $1,000 that he wants to give me, and he says, here, I want to give you $1,000. I go, great, go ahead, Tyler. How am I going to receive it? In order to receive, you have to be open. The moment I open my hands, now Tyler could put money in them. But I know Tyler doesn't have $1,000 cash on him right now to demonstrate this point. All right. So you have to be willing to receive it. But it's like verse 11 says, they would not submit to me. And so God says, I gave them over to their stubborn hearts. This is a tremendous challenge. What's the problem of a stubborn heart, Tyler, if the Lord gives us over to the stubbornness, to our stubborn hearts?
We're not listening to God, we're only listening to ourselves because we're being stubborn.
And generally that tends towards things being better or things becoming worse.
Worse.
And you say, well, if your heart's stubborn and you're trying to get through a wall by breaking it down with your forehead, the funny thing about stubbornness is the less progress you make, the more stubborn you get, no matter how much damage it causes you. And so if you hold that image, someone trying to break down a 50-foot concrete wall with their forehead, there's going to come a point where the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a hole in your head, or you're going to knock yourself out. But stubbornness, when you wake up from being knocked out, will say, I'm going to beat this wall down. I'm going to hit it again with my head. And the Lord's saying, if you do it my way, you can go 10 feet to the right or 10 feet to the left and go around the 50-foot thick concrete wall. But the stubborn person says, I'm not listening to you. I'm not going 10 feet to the right or the left to get around this problem. The challenge is, guess what? You will literally, not just metaphorically, you will literally, a society will kill itself because of stubbornness. It's not the best way, but you're too stubborn to go, you know what, maybe we should change and go back to doing it this way. But some voice will go, well, that's not the new enlightened way. That's not the modern way. Whatever stupid saying that they have, that's not the tolerant way. And all those slogans are used by the devil and his servants to help harden people in their stubbornness. And but what's the last part of that? The Lord says, verse 16, Tyler, read that one more time.
He would have fed them also with the finest of wheat, and with honey from the rock I would have satisfied you.
So was that, close us out on the meaning of that in relation to all this stubbornness stuff.
God was willing to provide if they were willing to not be stubborn and listen.
And not just provide, but what? I would have fed you with the finest wheat. I don't know how much you do or don't like bread. Wonder bread, Wonder type bread. Let me change that. Wonder type bread. That means the uber plain white bread that's not much more than paste. And now everybody's got these breads that, you know, they charge like $8 a loaf for. Because they're like, you know, these are 16 whole grain sprouted bread. Just so we're clear, y'all, it doesn't taste good. You eat it because you know it's better for you than the paste bread. All right? But there was a time before all that stuff when the only thing you had was white bread, low-grade wheat bread, and high-grade wheat bread. Except in some restaurants where they had real fine flour and they custom made their bread. And brother, I'm telling you, man, you go to those restaurants and those bread loaves they had and the butter they had back in the day, you'd sit there and just eat your whole meal. Be like, I'll take the meal home. I'm just here to eat the good bread. If you ever have bread made with actual good wheat, properly ground, all the right stuff, it makes more sense. And then I would have satisfied you with honey from the rock. Man, fine bread and honey. That's living there. You say, nah. Are you a honey fan?
Decently so.
Decently so. Fine bread, fine fresh hot bread, pat of butter, toasted with top shelf honey, and that's living. And that's the point of the Lord, because that kind of stuff, it tastes good and it actually stays with you for a little bit. But they wouldn't have that. They wouldn't even take bread and honey. That's how stubborn they were. Ask yourself, where are you at on the spectrum? Where are any of us at? I'm Brian Reagan, this is
Tyler Kelly.
and we'll bid you good night.